they might be able to offer you a job, because I'd started to write. I wrote to the BBC and they said, no, we do have a BBC puppet theatre, but I think you ought to go to art school first, we don't have any vacancies, blah, blah. Slightly, a bit sad really, but I was a bit put off by that. But then Bob Pelham, when he gave me this address of the theatre, I then went to the Puppet Guild and they said, oh yes, it's just open, this puppet theatre, yes, we're all going to go to a visit, but sadly there wasn't room for me on the coach. But an Australian puppeteer called Edith Murray, she was visiting the country and said, look, I'll take you, I know John Wright, we can introduce you and you can see the show. Well, that totally inspired me. And to make a long story short, I left school at 15, can you believe, could still do that at those, didn't stay for exams, and joined the Little Angel Theatre, can you believe, after writing a letter to him, John Wright, and I was their second apprentice, and I worked there for 6 months with no pay, and then I got £2 a week. Now I'm talking about 1963, 64, that sort of time. So, the pound was worth a little bit more money, and my parents my father was a teacher, and my mother was, sort of not, I would say we weren't earning mega bucks, but they sort of supported me with fares from Stockwell to the Angel and all the rest of it. And really, I learnt, I had my eyes really sort of widened, because being in the theatre, they had the most wonderful marionettes as the string puppets. They also did glove puppets and shadow puppets and all the sort of types, because they involved all the different types in the shows they were producing. And at that time, they were producing a repertoire. There was a repertoire of string puppet shows, but obviously they wanted to get new work, because there's the building, they could use it. And that's what we did, and I'm still, believe it or not, I'm still involved in the Little Angel now after all these years, over 50 years. It's extraordinary. I'm now what they call an honorary associate, along with Lindy Wright, who was the founder director's wife, and I'm on the board of directors too now, and I'm going to be doing their Christmas show. So it's been an amazing time, really. So that's my start of puppetry, really, was starting at the Puppet Guild, going to the EPA, going to the Little Angel, and I think because it was a building-based place, puppeteers would go to visit it, because, they think, a puppet theatre, must go and visit it. And so I got introduced to lots of different puppeteers who I probably wouldn't have met otherwise, and so my career took off, really. I was there for 8 months to begin with, and then I went on to work with a puppeteer called Jan Bussell, who was famous for the Hogarth puppets, and he was the puppeteer who started the Muffin the Mule, who was the very first television puppet icon, they said, started in 1946. Obviously, I wasn't around at that time, but I did work for him in the 60s, which was wonderful, and I continue to this day being part of, I know the grandchildren now, they've sadly died, the puppeteers, that started the Muffin Company, but the grandchildren, when I say grandchildren, they're parents now with their own children, but I borrow muffins sometimes. I've worked muffins since, for various events for them and stuff like that, so it's amazing, really. And then when I got the television job, which I'll tell you about for Rainbow, was basically, I'd been working at the theatre, and one of the people that was working at the Little Angel Theatre was a guy called John Thurtle, and he basically had got the job, funny enough, on Rainbow as a puppeteer, because the original puppeteer, who was the lady that I'd met at EPA, Violet Philpott, she'd taken on the job to do, funny enough, it was just Zippy then, the very first series, and second series I think she did, and she sadly sort of did her back in, her disc, one of her discs went or so, partly because, when you're puppeteers, you suddenly got this amazing job, and I think she was probably earning about £100 a week or something. Well, that was a fortune in those days as far as puppeteers concerned. You would never earn mega bucks when you're puppeteers, but suddenly, with a television job, that was really good. Anyway, and she felt she couldn't not, stay on doing it, because it was going to help her establish her own company. She always wanted a company, and the money was helping, towards that. Anyway, poor thing, she did do her back in, and she had to retire from the show, and John Thurtle took over, who was one of the puppeteers, and then he retired after a bit, because he was setting up with a partner playboard for the BBC. He was a brilliant puppeteer. Sadly, he's no longer with us, and he basically was a wonderful maker and very intelligent, very brilliant guy, and made puppets for playboard. Then ended up with his partner making a series called Button Moon, which you've probably heard of.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
He did that. Well, he went on to do that and couldn't carry on doing The Rainbow, although it was for Thames Television. So he phoned me up, being a friend, said, "Look, Ronnie, how about you taking over, Zippy?" Well, I mean, it was amazing because just at the beginning of Rainbow, or before it started, the producer and a researcher came to visit the Little Angel Theatre. I suppose they thought, puppets, they get some ideas if they go to a puppet theatre. And at the time, and I always think this is a bit of a coincidence, I was having some puppets made for a children's show that I was going to do for their Saturday morning shows. And one of the puppets had a great big zip across his mouth. Didn't look like Zippy, but had this zip. And I've still got it. It's sort of like a brown potato-shaped thing. Anyway, and I thought it was a good idea, this puppet would talk too much and they'd zip him up. Believe it or not, now, I don't know, I haven't got any real sort of facts. I was never told this was the case, but the researcher and the producer came to talk to John Wright, and John Wright said, "Sir, I'm terribly sorry, it's not the sort of job that I would undertake." But they were wandering around looking at stuff in the workshop, and I'm sure the researcher saw this puppet with the zip across, and believe it or not, in 1972, whenever it was, there was Rainbow and was a puppet with a zip across his mouth. Zippy, I didn't name it, obviously, but and I thought, what a coincidence. And then suddenly, the coincidence even more, the fact that I was able to take over from John and stayed with the programme for, 20-odd years, it was on. So, anyway, that's just a byline to the story, but I always like to think, well, maybe, they saw that. Maybe I was sort of, I don't know what the word is, but maybe it was, I was sort of, it was fate. I should be doing that puppet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the story of that. And I carried on with Rainbow, as I say, right to its finish. I mean, we did the Thames programmes. I think I started around about 1973 in October. So the programme had been on for a year, and they'd had various changes. I mean, the original Zippy looked a little bit different. John Thurtle, being a brilliant maker, redesigned Zippy, and he's the puppet that everyone sees now. It looks lovely. And he also made the George character, because originally George wasn't in the original series. They thought it would be nice to have a foil for him, and because he was the perfect foil. And they got a new voiceman. I didn't actually do the voice of Zippy at the beginning. A man called Roy Skelton did the voices, and he did them, and for many years actually. But then I took over when, for instance, we sometimes opened fates or did sort of charity things. And Roy lived in Brighton, and he had a family and everything, and he found it difficult always to go up to voice the puppets, sit behind a wall or something, because they were pretty sort of, if it was a fate, you just had to sort of hide behind something. And anyway, and it was easier for Jeffrey and the singers to be there because they're just there as actors, and that was fine. And with the puppets, it was always more tricky. Anyway, I took over doing the voices the voice certainly for Zippy, and so I did some of the live events, and so I sort of was taking them, just copying Roy's voice really. And sadly, a few years ago, Roy died, and I was asked by Fremantle Television, who sort of owned Thames, the brand, as it were, and to take over and do Zippy in various appearances, and I'm still doing, can you believe, appearances with Zippy now. Just last year I did a program for Channel 4 called The Last Leg, which was a wonderful program, sort of political comedy satire, but updates, but it's live as well. And I think what I did was, they asked if Zippy could appear because one of the presenters they have live tweets and things that come out, and they read them while the show's on and everything. And one of the people said, "Oh, you sound like Zippy from Rainbow." And the guy said, "No, I don't, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, they thought it would be a funny idea to surprise everybody by Zippy popping up the next week. So that's what happened. So I popped up, and of course they loved it, and the audience went mad. And then I did a sort of skit where I pretended